Okay, so hi everybody, and thank you for attending. My name is Chris Tim. I'm from Sandela Consulting. Today with me, I have Jeff Bogaerts and Patrick van Beek from Goulash. They're going to talk a little bit about what Goulash is, how it works, how it integrates with Autotask, and how it's going to make you more efficient as an MSP, and ultimately how it's going to make you more profitable as an MSP by using Goulash. So before we kick off, just a little bit of housekeeping. If you have a question, you can either just raise your hand by clicking on the raise hand button at the bottom, or you can use the Q&A where either myself and Jeff or Patrick, who is ever not talking at the time, will just be monitoring the Q&A. And you can use the chat as well if you want to. We want to try and make this as interactive as possible. So if you do have any questions, please use the Q&A, and we'll do our very best to answer those questions as we're working through the presentation. So hi Patrick and Jeff, welcome and thank you for coming. Do you want to just let everybody know just a little bit about who you guys are and what Goulash is all about?
Yeah, sure. So hi, first of all, Chris, thanks for having us on the webinar. And thanks everybody for joining. So I'm Patrick. I'm sort of the onboarding customer front-facing guy. I have an IT background. I'm not a salesperson. With me is Jeff.
Hello everyone. I'm Jeff. I'm the founder of Goulash. I also started an MSP 10 years ago, and from the MSP. A couple of years ago, I started Goulash.
Yeah.
Cool. So I believe you guys have a presentation you just want to kind of go through and just explain a little bit more about what Goulash is and how it works. So who's ever got the control, do you guys just want to share out your screen, your PowerPoint, and let's go from there. I see there's a couple more people while you're doing that have just signed on. So hi to everyone else who's just connected. If you have any questions, please feel free to just use the Q&A or the chat, and we'll do our very best to answer those as best as we can. So over to you guys.
Yeah, okay. So at Goulash, we would like to maximize profits for IT service providers worldwide with a carefree automated billing integration between all major vendors. That's a whole lot in one sentence. It'll probably be more clear if we show you in a minute. So the idea is MSPs struggle with their billing at the end of the month. We have to go through a lot of licenses and see if we're billing them correctly. It's time consuming, and that's a little bit the reason why Jeff started Goulash. To give you an idea, you want to take this?
Yes. Yeah. So I started my MSP in 2013, and in the growth of the company, today we are with 11 people working in the MSP. We also grow in the overhead of the license management. Every month, checking out the licenses that we buy from our vendors and sell to our customers, the Microsoft licenses or backup or antivirus. It was taking a lot of time to manage that. And in 2018, I was searching for a solution. How can I optimize the management of licenses for my IT business? On that moment, there wasn't really a solution for that. So I started Goulash to create a solution that is a good thing for Cavere, for my MSP, but also for other companies. If we check our MSP, today we have 200 connected accounts. We have 200 customers and syncing almost 3,000 licenses. And in the past, it was taking more than 24 hours a month to manage all the licenses, to check the invoices of Microsoft, of the distributor, of the antivirus vendor. So it was taking a lot of time to check if everything was okay. After that, we started Goulash and we integrated everything that it will be automated with Goulash. It was not only the cost of Goulash itself. So in our profit was we had a lot of time saving And on the other side, we had an increase of revenue because all the unbilled licenses are now built with Goulash.
Yeah, so this is to give you a rundown of a typical MSP in Belgium. We did do quite a lot of savings on that. So why, in first place, what could possibly go wrong? Of course, the most important one is you forget to bill your customer. That's inconvenient because you have to go back after a couple of months and say, hey, customer, we forgot to bill you. That's not really interesting. You miss a lot of revenue on that one. What else? You can overbill your customer. Say during the month you decrease the number of licenses for that customer, but you forget to change the numbers in Autotask. You're overbilling the customer, which is not really that bad, but the customer doesn't really like that. What else can go wrong? Yeah, of course, if you do it manually, there's the chance of human errors. Numbers get mixed up, you're charging the wrong customer, that sort of thing. And most of all, it's just time consuming, especially if you know that there's an automated way to do this.
And if I can just say, Patrick, so this is something I hear from a lot of MSPs, right? Where, you know, people have, because everything is so manual, updating things in Autotask, you know, people forget to bill, like you say, or, you know, or there's some kind of error, right? Somebody puts, you know, somebody says their customers added, you know, 10 licenses instead of 1, and they put a 10 instead of a 1, that kind of thing. So, you know, I think I see that quite a lot. And as you say, it's very, very time consuming doing that stuff manually. So, you know, I'm for one very interested to see kind of, you know, how Goulash can help us solve certainly those problems. And hopefully it can solve the problem of that guy sawing his friend in half as well. So,
yeah. And also what we're all seeing, we are selling more and more SaaS products. It's not only Microsoft licenses, but it's becoming antivirus licenses, threat protection. Whenever there's multiple vendors that you're selling, and you have to go through each vendor each month to see if the license amount is correct. And just so time consuming. You don't really want to do that every month. That's why we came up with Goulash.
Absolutely.
So why Goulash? What's the advantage? We're distributor independent, so we will connect directly to the vendor and don't go through a distributor. That opens a lot of doors for us as well. There's no vendor lock-in, so you're not obliged to go through a specific vendor. We can try to support as many vendors as we want. It's very simple. It's very straightforward. Once you set it up, it's set and forget. You can just sit back and let Goulash do the magic. Yeah. We also have a generic vendor import. So each vendor that is not automatically synced through Goulash, there's a way to do this manually as well. We'll show you also later in a demo. Something we want to make sure obvious, we get the questions a lot. We as Goulash, we do not sell licenses. That's the MSP style. We just sync them from A to B, and that's what we're good at.
Okay, so can I just ask a question on here as well? Just so when you say that you don't sell licenses, so and you distributor independent, so effectively this means that an MSP can buy their CSP licenses from anyone, right? So whether they buy it from Tech or Ingram or even Pax8 or any of these other places, you'll still be able to actually use Goulash to bring that stuff into Autotask.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. Okay. Hopefully you can show us that when you demo the product to us.
Exactly, that's what we're about to do right now.
Okay. Cool. All right. So I don't know if anyone else has any specific questions around this, you know, or if anyone has any other you know, ways that they're bringing stuff into Autotask. If there's any particular vendors that you're using and you'd like to kind of see CSP stuff brought into Autotask in a different way, maybe after the the demo that these guys do might kind of answer those questions. But, you know, like I said, if you've got any questions, please just use the Q&A and ask those questions.
All right, great. I'll go back to the share my screen. All right. So it's set and forget, as I said before, but before you set and forget it, there's some little bit of configuration that needs to be done. Just going to talk to the couple of steps that needs to be configured before you can use Goulash. Obviously, you need to set up a connection to Autotask, which is done through an API user, which you can read in a documentation. The second part is you're going to have to set up a connection with Microsoft or Google or both. So we can start receiving the license information. This is done through your partner's accounts. There's a specific documentation how to set up that as well. Once that is done, you have to go through a service mapping. So we will get a list of all the licenses you're using at Google and Microsoft, and you need to tell us what is your Autotask service that is related to that. For instance, let's say we have Microsoft 365 apps for business. In this case, in Autotask, it's called Microsoft 365 Business Yearly, but it could be something else for you. We don't know what you're calling your Autotask services, so you have to make this mapping once, and once that is done, it will be saved for you. That's the most time-consuming part, I think, in the initial setup. And let's take some Microsoft example, for instance. Once the mapping is done, you could start connecting your Microsoft accounts or Microsoft tenants to your Autotask accounts. So you will get a list from your Microsoft accounts, and you can see I already have one connected to our demo customer one, but I will go through the setup phase for this customer Beek PLC. I can open this customer and I can see this customer has 130 Microsoft 365 apps for enterprise. I'm going to connect it to Autotask. So let's say customer 2, for instance, I have something in the list here. Then we were going to see, are there any Autotask contracts already available that you want to sync to, or do you want to make a new contract? For demo purpose, I'll create a new contract here. And the billing cycle, we want to bill a monthly, quarterly, yearly, semi-annually. That's up to you. Start date, end dates, that's not really for us to worry about right now. You get a resume at the end saying this is going to happen. Okay, save changes. Once you click Save Changes in the background, we will create an API call to Autotask saying, hey, we want to make a new contract for this customer with these services applied.
Can I just ask a quick, so Ben Spector had a question, Patrick, about at the top, you've got license seats 128, and then under the product, you've got licenses 130. So what's the difference between those two?
Yeah, let me just go back to so here 128 seats and 130 licenses. There's something excluded for this customer as well. So in our old pricing model, we were calculating the seats and not the amount of licenses. What's the difference? You could sort of see seats like the amount of users that the customer has, but one user could have multiple licenses. So we could have an exchange license plus an advanced threat protection license. That's 2 licenses, but actually it's only 1 user. So we were counting the amount of seats. That's why it's still separated. Our pricing model changed recently, so we're not really counting the seats anymore, but it's still to give you an idea of what is going on within that customer. To give you, let's say, this customer here, for instance. Yes.
Did that answer your question? Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know yet, but I'm sure Ben will come back with anything else. Oh, he said yes. That's fine. Great.
All right. Okay, great.
Right.
So I can see now we have Beer PLC with a green check mark, which means that is a contract created in Autotask. So if we open that contract open, and we go to our services, and we can indeed see there is a Microsoft 365 Pro Plus for 130 units available for this customer.
And just the question I have is, does that creates the service as well? So if the service doesn't exist in Autotask, it'll create that as well as the contract.
We don't create services in Autotask.
So you have to map it in the beginning and then,
yeah.
Okay.
So you will do a global mapping of the products.
Sure.
But let's say this customer is a very good customer and you give them a sort of a reduction. You could create a separate service with a different pricing, and then you could go into configure and override that specific mapping to the one with the discount. So you can override the global mapping on a customer base.
Cool.
So this is set up for this customer. If then next month or tomorrow the license number changed, it will be done on that same day in Autotask as well. So the license will be prorated each and every time. In a future version, we will be able to say, no, we want to charge at the beginning of the month or at a specific date in the month. But as of now, it will be prorated as it's prorated by Microsoft as well. So.
Okay.
Now if you go back to our contracts, the same would apply for Google contracts. It's just the same workflow. You can connect the Autotask customer, you type it and you go through the wizard. If you have a lot of accounts, it's a little bit of work to set up first, but you would have to, you could immediately see once it's set up and it's automatically syncing the numbers up and down. There's no counting going on. You will get a report saying at the end of the month, there was an increase or a decrease for this customer, just to give you the idea that there's something happening in the background as well. It's not yeah, you might want to say it's now going automatic, but how do I know if this is really working? There is a reporting on a weekly or daily or a monthly basis that will show you, okay, these are the increases in license and these are the decreases in license for a account X or Y. So that's something to assure you that this product is really doing something in the background and it's keeping track of the changes, so you don't have to do that.
Okay. Now, one of the questions I had is, so you're talking about everything to do with Autotask here. Is that the only PSA that you guys integrate with, or do you integrate with any others? And if not, is there anything on the roadmap to integrate with any others?
Today, our focus is Autotask PSA, because we have a lot of experience with Autotask. We have on the roadmap somewhere beginning of next year to integrate with ConnectWise, to integrate with other PSA solutions on the market. But today, our focus is to integrate all the vendors with Autotask PSA. That is the first thing that we want to do.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So we natively we started doing Microsoft and Google licenses, but once that was covered, we thought, hey, let's go and look for some other vendors that can integrate as well. So there's two types of vendors that we can integrate. One that offers an API and one that doesn't offer an API. So those we were focusing, of course, first on those with an API, which allows us to obtain information on a daily basis. So you don't have to export and import it manually. At the moment, there's Webroot and Bitdefender that offer this service. And that's what we are trying to make this list longer and longer and longer. Mm-hmm. Of course, it's also depends on the market. If we get a lot of requests saying, "Hey, we want to have an integration with vendor X," then we'll probably focus on vendor X first. If you have a specific vendor that you want to set up and sync with Autotask, we can do that as well on a consultancy base as well for you. So that's, but it's a little bit the demand and supply.
And that's a good point to kind of say, you know, if anyone that's listening to this, or you know, this will be distributed out to other networks as well. So if anybody has any questions or has any suggestions on other things that they'd like to see integrated into Goulash, then you know, either use the Q&A or you know, put a comment below, and just, you know, we'll get it back to these guys to talk to them about which products you'd like to see integrated with Goulash. I mean, I actually have one already I'd like to see, and I think a lot of MSPs use this, is something along the lines of 3CX, you know, on being able to bill, you know, any of the licenses that customers are selling from a 3CX perspective. And even if you're then charging for the calls and telephone calls and messages and those kinds of things, to see that stuff integrated as well through Goulash. So I don't know if you guys have any of that stuff on your roadmap, or if that's you've heard about that before, but I see a lot of people who have 3CX, and that's often, you know, something that's really difficult to kind of, well, it's not difficult to get into Autotask, it's just right, like you mentioned in the beginning, it's very manual, and it's very prone to error and stuff like that.
3.6 is on the roadmap, but we have already customers using Goulash for their VoIP integration, and VoIP is a combination of services. The units you sell, for example, a device, a user account, that is a service in Autotask. On the other side, you have consumption, the calling minutes. So we need to combine both of them in one contract in Autotask. So that's also already in place. For some of them, we can use the API. If we don't have an API, we can import it with our CSV importer and combine the contracts for the Autotask customer.
So how does that work? As I said, there's two types of vendors, one with an API, one without. Those without an API, usually you're able to export the data to a CSV file or an Excel file. And the idea is to import that file once, make a mapping, and then each month re-import the new data to Goulash. To give you an example, in contracts, we have one for a VoIP provider. You get the same list, the customer, the Autotask account, it's connected, there's a contract in place. We can see for the customer one, he has 23 licenses. And if I go to import and choose my VoIP profile, pick a file, this is VoIP 2. I import the data at the end of the month. The mapping is already made, so I'm going to skip this one. Now I can see there is a new license count. I'm going to import the data. And the license count is added with the new licenses. In the background, there's already an Autotask contract available. So if you go to contracts,
but just to be clear on this, while you're sort of doing that, so on the CSV license or the CSV import like that, you can import any CSV from anybody.
Yeah.
They don't have to kind of talk to you about the integration or anything. They just upload it and they're good to go.
Yeah. So probably the CSV would obtain the customer name, the amount of licenses, and the product ID. That's typically at least the minimum that we need to sync into Autotask. So those numbers come up in Autotask the same way as the Microsoft license or the Google license.
Okay.
This was the manual way. So you need to import the CSV into Goulash, where you have also the possibility to send all the data to a unique email address, and then we do everything in the background. So based on a unique email address, we do the parsing, we do the auto mapping. You will receive after the parsing and the connecting an email with an overview. This is happening. You can approve that, or you can also automate that, and all your licenses are then in sync again.
Okay. Do you have to do a manual import the first time before you email it, or can you just email it? Yeah. Okay.
So the initial import will require you to map the columns to Autotask setup. Yeah.
So in the background, from the moment we create a vendor, we have the unique email address where you can send everything to. But for example, if your vendor is sending the email directly to our system, then we can set an auto reply address to someone else, someone from the administration to approve it, or we can use the auto approve function.
Okay, that's cool.
So this was a little bit in a nutshell a demo of how to set up Goulash. Once you connect all your accounts, you do not longer have to do at the end of the month, seeing how many licenses does he have, how many licenses do I have in Autotask. That process is totally eliminated at the end of the month. So that's how the time comes up, how you avoid mistakes, and how you increase your profits.
Okay, and just while you were talking about that, you were saying about 3CX is on the roadmap. Can you and I see there that you've got Exclaimer and Duo and a couple of other things on that list. So can you just talk about the roadmap and talk about kind of what's coming, what you're integrating with, and some of the things that people might potentially how they would get that working? Do they need to speak to you about it, or is it just going to be out of the box and they can just connect it in the same way as everything else? Can you just talk through that for us?
Yeah, sure. So what's coming in the next weeks and months? Of course, the focus is on more vendors through API. We want to connect a lot of vendors, as many as possible. There's also a browser extension coming, which I'll show you in just a minute. Another thing that's being requested is a license to user mapping. So some MSPs, they provide an invoice to the customer saying this this employee of you is using that license. So there's a connection between the license and the end user. That's something that's coming as well. I said earlier, fixed billing versus pro rata is coming in the next release. We said before we're distributor independent, but we're also going through certain distributors integration. So what is the advantage of that? Right now, we're obtaining license information directly from Microsoft. But if you would connect to a distributor, you're also able to obtain the license information, but also other products that distributors sell, domain names, backup, whatever they're selling, we could obtain the data directly from the distributor as well. So that's something that's been working on also in the background.
Can I just quickly ask a question on there as well? So you've got pro rata versus fixed billing. I know what both of those two are in terms of what they actually are, but what does that mean in terms of Goulash? So does that mean if I add a license halfway through the month, I can choose to bill for the full month, or does it, and I can choose whether it prorates or charges the full amount? Is that what it means?
That's exactly what it means, yeah.
Okay, that's good.
Okay. That's something else we're working on, is profitability reporting. To give you an example, you could, let's say you have a fixed price billing Azure consumption. So you're not billing it per minute, but you're putting it on a fixed price. We would be able to obtain the costs from Azure and compare it to your fixed billing. So if the Azure consumption would be increasing for that customer, your profit will be decreasing because the fixed price is not almost covering the usage. So we want to put in an alerting or a reporting service for that as well. That will probably be in the same line once we get native Azure integration for tier 2 partners as well.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit more about your native Azure integration? Because you didn't sort of really mention it. So what is it actually going to integrate with as far as Azure is concerned? Is that only consumption, or is there anything else it's doing?
Yeah, the Azure integration is turns out to be the trickiest for us to implement natively. And natively, meaning you would just put in your credentials, and then we would pull in the data from Azure as well, seeing customers and usage, etc. But we haven't managed to do that yet for tier 2 partners. We have that for tier 1 partners, but that's a smaller amount. So right now, the Azure consumption is being done through the CSV import methods that we showed earlier. But since it's really one of the key vendor items that we want to automate as well. So that's being worked on.
Cool. And so here, when you're talking about on the roadmap, so you were talking about all these things that are coming, but I guess in terms of what specific applications are you going to be integrating with? So I saw you had web roots, exclaimer and all that kind of stuff on the list. So can you talk about sort of the exact things that you're going to be integrating with in terms of those products as well?
Yeah, so if we go back to the browser extension, I'm going to show you a little demo of how this is going to work. So this is an example for Exclaimer, which is a signature automation tool that is cloud-based. You would typically log in, obtain the list of your customers, the amount of licenses, export this, put this in a CSV file, and then import it into Autotask, into Goulash. But we try to make this step a little bit easier. So in this case, we have for customer 1, 15 licenses. We have this Chrome extension that you would just open up. You configure once your Exclaimer settings, and then we will read the data from the website. We say customer 1 has 15, customer 2 17, and then you send the data directly to Goulash from within the web page. It's going in the background saying, please wait, the data is sent successfully. You can then go to Autotask, to Goulash, sorry. You go back to your customer, and you can see now instead of 13, he has now 50 licenses. Then if you go to Autotask, you can see the contract, it has 13 units as well. But if we refresh the page and we go back to our services, you can see it's now 50 units, and they're added 2 licenses at the bottom on the prorated price. So this browser extension is now currently supporting data backup,
LastPass for MSP, and Duo.com. And we're working on other solutions also. If there is if we don't have an API, we will update our extension to get all the MSP vendors on the list.
Okay. And that browser extension, I'm assuming that's going to work with all the major browsers.
Yes, with Edge, with Chrome. Yeah, it's working.
Chrome, Firefox, Safari. I nearly said Internet Explorer, but that's not a thing anymore, is it?
I don't know if Safari will work, but we tested with Edge and Chrome.
Edge and Chrome. Okay, so it works with all of those. Cool. And any idea of the time frame for that roadmap?
The extensions for LastPass and the Chrome extension is ready to release. So if a customer wants to use it, they can send us an email or a chat request, and then we will enable the integration, and they can use the Chrome extension. It will be in the next days also public available. New integrations such as 2SX, that will be in a couple of weeks. We need to test it, see if everything is working well, and then we can release it. Also on the roadmap, SolarWinds backup is used by a lot of MSPs, and we are working on that also. The SolarWinds backup or enabled in the past or now is also a thing that we need to solve.
Okay, that's great. I don't know if anyone else has any questions. I see that I think one person's dropped off. So are there any other specific questions that anyone else has for the guys in terms of the integrations or what products it's integrating with, or anyone else want to see anything else specific on how the product works? So if you do, just feel free to send that over in the Q&A. So while we're waiting for that, guys, and obviously I know I'm going to put you under pressure now, so you don't have to answer this question, but what is the pricing model like on Goulash? I mean, is it something that you have a standard pricing, or is it a when an MSP contacts you based on the amount of seats, or how does your pricing work?
Yeah, so as I said earlier, we changed our pricing model. We just want to make it more transparent. So we have a fixed price for the first 25 Autotask contracts you're syncing. Sorry, Autotask customers that you're syncing, not contracts. For each additional Autotask customer that added to the list, you will pay $1.25 extra.
Okay.
There's of course, the pricing is, there's a simulator on our website on goulash.io. If you go to the pricing tab, I can show you. That will explain it even easier.
And I guess, and a question I guess a lot of MSPs will ask, and something I hear a lot. Do you guys have any kind of long-term tie-ins, or is it just month by month?
No, we don't want you to sign contracts for a year or something else. This is monthly based. You can cancel it whenever you want. You can start using a 30-day trial. If you're after that, you're not happy with it, you don't have to prolong it. You don't have to enter credit card details. We will not automatically enable your account. You're free to try it for 30 days. If it's okay, then you fill in your credentials, your credit card information, and you're good to go. So, for instance, in the demo we showed before, we have 211 customers. The pricing would be 325 per month. 331.25 per month.
Okay.
So each potential customer could calculate how much the pricing would be for them. Okay,
that's great. That's really good, and it's good to have that on your website. And so an MSP can just go on and work out how many customers they think they want to sync this with, and then and that doesn't matter how many contracts, right? So you can have hundreds of contracts per customer, but it's based specifically on the customer record.
So if I go back to the Goulash, I would probably only be charged. If this was my setup, I would be charged for the first two, but these first two are included in the 25 package. So if I have now 26 connected, then I would start paying extra. But the first 25 customers are in the $100 fixed price.
Right. Okay. No, that's great. That's really good. I see there's you guys obviously did a really good job in explaining this, because there's been no other questions. So that's always a good sign. I guess if there's no other questions on there. So I mean, do you guys have anything else you wanted to sort of show us, or? No?
I think that's about it. We can, if you want to contact us, you can go to the goulash.io website, and you can use the chat button or send us an email. Sure, contact details will be added to the webinar as well.
They will, yeah. So I'll make sure your details are added to the webinar, and this will probably be uploaded onto YouTube as well. So we'll make sure that in the comments below that there is some information on how to get hold of Goulash. And I guess if anyone wants to reach out to you guys directly, we'll put your LinkedIn details on there as well, so that somebody can directly reach out to you, one of you two, if they want to as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Perfect.
So yeah, thank you very much, guys. I really appreciate that. And thanks for coming on and talking to us a little bit about Goulash. I really, really appreciate your time. Really appreciate you talking to us through this. And for those people that are on the call, you know, I'm going to hit the end button soon. So if there's any last minute questions that anyone wants to ask, you know, feel free. Otherwise, I'll end the session now. And then thank you very much to everyone who's attended. And yeah, thanks to you guys for showing us through the product. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Chris, for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks. Cheers, guys.
Bye.
Bye.